Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Doug from Beyond Territory. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use Geek Gaming Scenics modelling compound to help you build your own little hills and rocky terrain for your wargaming needs. Find out how you can make these in a sec. Okay, starting off, bit of chipboard that I'm going to use as a base for the hill. And what I'm going to do is take my Stanley, using a cutting mat, and just take off. Be careful a bit with this one. Now that I've tapered the edges, I've also made sure that it's rounded, and that's kind of a good shape for your scatter terrain for your hills. Alright, so I've dry fit some XPS in place. It's not glued down yet, just want to play around with whether or not I've got the right shape. I'm not too fussed about the textures right now. I'm just kind of getting the general shape, making sure I've got some flat surfaces that I can move things around. Alongside this build, I'm also going to do another hill, not as rocky this one, it's going to be more of a mound. And I'm going to use some of my offcuts of my foam core card, okay? And this stuff's brilliant, you can rip it, tear it, layer it, create different textures, rip away, it's awesome. What I'm going to do now, using the foam core card, I'm just going to build up my gradual hill onto the base. I'm thinking about the pieces that I need to rip down, where it needs to fit and where it's got to fall. Got my idea of a mounded hill, not too steep, just gradual, and I've got it in. So it's dried now. I've put a little bit of sand on it as well, but we've got the formations from the foam core, small little hill, and a larger hill using the XPS. I got some of this stuff, modelling compound from Geek Gaming Scenics. I've never used this stuff before, but I've watched Luke's videos on his channel. On the back of the bag, when you buy it, gives you the instructions of use. Perfect for creating realistic ground formations, which is what I'm doing. Blending rock molds, haven't got any rock molds, but for hillsides, miniature basings, it increases strength, it adheres to most surfaces, quick drying, and then it's basically 3 parts of this stuff to 1 part water and mix really well until it's dense consistency. When I've seen it on the video, it looks like really thick porridge, I suppose. And then basically when it's firm, you can kind of smooth it with wet fingers. And it says drying time 45 minutes. So let's crack this open, let's give it a go. First time I've used this. I haven't been disappointed with any of his other stuff, so I can't wait to use this. So I've got 2 pots to use. I've got a water pot that I'm going to use to mix it all together, and I've got this, one of my kids' cups that I'm going to use to get my measurements. So I'm going to do this by eye, so probably make a bunch of mess, but I'll tip a bunch out. So I'm going to do 1 cup of this. I'm not quite sure how far it will go. 1 cup, 1/3 of a cup of water, and I'm just going to mix it up. I think just by luck, I think this might be enough for what I'm going to do with it. All right, so it's like a porridgey style. I'm going to make sure I take my rings off because I'm going to get my hands messy with this one. I'll break it down and just apply it to the edges. Make a bit of a smooth slope instead of dramatic edge on parts of it. I've smoothed some of the edges, broken it down, tried to make a bit of a slope from some of the mounds to the other bits. Okay, so I've done my first one, bit messy, but I quite like it. I like getting stuck into my terrain. Easy to apply, really malleable. You can really get in the nooks and crannies, you can adjust it. It's got 45 minutes drying time, so I still got time to adjust and move and manipulate bits if I'm not that happy with it. And from that cup, so I've managed to do most of that area, and I've still, I'd say, over half of it left over. And these kids' cups, they're not very big, so it goes a long way. Right, now on my XPS foam, on this one, I've got a lot of crevices I didn't really want, because I was using scrap bits of my XPS foam. So I'm going to fill some of those in, fill in some of the gaps, get that in. So the modelling compound has gone rock hard. Sculpted it a little bit when it was kind of going off in about 15 minutes. It was rock hard in half hour. Bound really well. Didn't add much weight to the terrain either, which is really good. All right, so I've undercoated my hills, my rocky terrain in black. It's all blended in nicely. I'm going to come in with some greys and pick out areas that I want to be rocky. I'm coming in with just an acrylic brown, burnt sienna, and on this I'm going to pick out areas where my mud and ground is going to be the base coat. I'm going to dab it in around the bottom where I think the soil will be, where the mud will be. So I put a little bit of brown in the rocks as well, only in dabs. But on this one as well, a bit of water, get it flowing a bit more. It's a lot more brown. It's more of a hillside, a few rocky outcrops. Okay, so the wash is now dry, and it's now some dry brushing time. So I'm using a light grey. This is Citadel's Administratum grey. Light. I've got my dry brush, taking off excess, and I'm going to come down vertical on the rocky bits and pick up some of the details on the rock, like so. Okay, my next dry brush is a white, and I'm using this quite sparingly, and I use it as almost like on the tips and edges of the rocks. Beginning of flocking, adding textures on. In with my white glue, my PVA. Just slap it on the areas where I would like my sands and my grass to go. I use an old spice pot, okay, and I will just chuck it out like so. It will distribute my flock quite evenly. A nice dusting coat, some heavy flocking going on. All right, it's a nice quick way. You've got an old spice pot, clean it, you use it for your flock. This one I'm doing a little bit differently. I'm going to come out with some of my sands, some of the areas that I've put my PVA on. Now I'm coming in with my brown ground, battleground from Army Painter. More grittier textures. Back to the rocky side, I've decided to add a little bit more PVA and add my brown battleground grit onto it as well, sparingly. On the more mounds, I'm coming back in with my flock, and I'm using, this is Woodland Scenic flock, burnt grass, which is, I reckon, a really nice base colour. Coming in with slightly bigger rubble. This is the cork, little bits of cork. You can make your own. All right, add a bit of highlight to my grass. I'm putting a bit of longer flock, which is the summer meadow stuff, and just every so often in amongst my burnt grass and adding some different shades of green, but not slight. Last but not least, I've got my stick-on tufts, and I'm going to break these up and just scatter in. I've become a bit of a fanboy of Geek Gaming Scenics stuff, Luke APS stuff, and this is the matte scenic sealant, which is really good. Basically, once you're done, give it a good spray all over, and it will seal and hold all your bits of flocking. And I'm going to put that to one side, and I'm going to leave this to dry, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done.